move on?
So let's move on. So I think that the next, the silver medal for interest out of these four things went to QStream. And so I'll walk through that a little bit. And this is a platform that we also have a DME membership to that is used for spaced education. And I'll show you what spaced education looks like logistically in a minute, but the idea is that instead of just getting one big information dump all at once or doing, 100 questions in a question bank, you're doing a few questions spaced over time, and you're seeing them multiple times, and that's been shown to promote retention and decrease forgetting. Other things that support the YQ stream, it uses test-enhanced learning or retrieval practice, basically the idea that you learn more by being tested on something than just being told it. It supports interleaving, which is the idea that you learn multiple things somewhat simultaneously rather than now we're learning anatomy, now we're learning pharmacology. So maybe you can not only retain them better, but also understand the interfaces between them. Gamification, which is making something game-like, is a great engagement tool, and I'll show you what that looks like for QStream. And then adaptive learning, the idea that this is a platform that can adapt increasing or decreasing levels of difficulty or even pushing out different content depending on what a particular learner needs. And then finally, the idea of analytics, I think, is of real interest with a lot of learning technologies. That's what's the back-end information that I can get about my learners who are moving through a QStream. How quickly are they moving through it? Are they getting almost all of the questions right or almost all of the questions wrong? And that tells me something about my teaching that I may want to adapt to. And this is just a study, again, showing this idea that retrieval practice can be more effective at retention. This is questions on a final exam, even compared to other active learning strategies like concept mapping. So this is overall how it works, and then I'll show you a better way of visualizing this in a second. So you have your educational intervention, your course or your workshop or whatever it is, and then spaced over time. In this case, I used examples of week 1 and 2 and 3, but it could be over a matter of days or things like that. You start to get questions, and if you get them wrong, they come back to you quickly. If you get them right, they come back to you more slowly, but they do still come back to you because we want to make sure that wasn't just a lucky guess. And then over time, once you've answered them correctly a certain number of times, they get retired. So this is one of those moments where technology can be very helpful in explaining something that I think we'll hopefully all agree that was probably a pretty confusing slide. And so Dan very nicely made this animation. So here's my educational intervention, and now I have just 4 questions, but you could have however many questions in your QStream. And let's say that at first I get question 1, oh, and I got that one wrong. Question 2, nuts, I got that one wrong too. Those are going to come back to me on a short repeat. Maybe they'll come back to me in a couple of days. Question 3, okay, I got that right. It's still going to come back to me because you want to make sure I got it right for the right reasons and that I remember it over time. And so that's still going to come back to me, but maybe in a couple of weeks. And same thing with question 4. That's going to come back to me in a couple of weeks because I got it right. Question 1, oh, I missed it again. Okay, so that still needs to keep coming back to me. I clearly didn't even get it after seeing it again. Question 2, this time I got that one correct, so that's going to come back on a long repeat. Question 3, oh, I missed it. Maybe I got it right the first time for the wrong reason, or I just forgot the answer by now. So that's going to keep coming back on a short repeat until I get it right. Okay, now I finally got it right. And then question 2, I got right twice, so that gets retired. You can see how the questions sort of move through. And as our keynote speaker said, thank goodness that there's not a human having to do this, right? So we have technology platforms that just do this all automatically and based on an algorithm. So, excuse me, in terms of the gamification, I'm actually participating in a QStream right now. So I had the privilege of doing the Harvard Macy Educators course, which is 1 week in January and 1 week in May. Pardon me. And in between, they want us to retain some of the concepts about the cognitive science of learning. And so they're pushing out a QStream. And we're participating in this in teams based on the project groups that we're in. So there's 20 project groups. I am in project group 8, and you can see, unfortunately, project group 8 is not doing so hot right now. The rest of the names have been blurred to protect the innocent. You get points, by the way, not only for getting things right, but just for participating, for answering the questions as they come through. So my project group, not doing so great in terms of participation or answering questions correctly, but the individual leaderboard, these are actually all the people who are tied for first place, and I am incredibly proud to be Romantic Giraffe. I did not choose this alias, and to be ranked for first in terms of my QStream performance. You can imagine that this is the sort of thing that can really get people engaged. So imagine that you had, 9 South versus 9 North nursing, or that you had 7 West Gen Peds interns versus 9 East Gen Peds interns. We all love a little competition. Heaven forbid we had like BCH versus CHOP QStream or something like that. We all love a little competition, and so it's a great way to get people engaged, and even to be able to say, I haven't yet done this, but I could say, hey, Project Group 8, come on, why aren't you guys participating? Let's get in on this learning together. We want to be at the top of the leaderboard. So this is what it looks like. I get this email in my inbox, and it shows me the question, and then I just click on the answer that then takes me to a web interface, and there are mobile interfaces as well. And so here's the question. I already answered. The correct answer was extraneous load, and you can see whether your answer was right or not. You can also see how did other people do. So am I getting the right answer and no one else is, or I'm getting the right answer and everyone else is? This must be a pretty easy question. And then always important to have a good explanation of both your correct and your incorrect answers. And one of the things we've talked about with QStream is this can not only be testing in support of learning, but testing as learning. So some people will do this without even having that initial educational intervention. They'll just push out a QStream and say, okay, just try your best, even if you haven't seen this material before, and then over time, you're going to be retaining it better and better. And so maybe I remembered that extraneous load was the correct answer, but I always forget what kind of cognitive load germane load is, and so then I go back and I read the explanation of that incorrect answer, and then maybe in the future, if I get a question on germane load, I'm going to get that one correct as well. So Dan's going to talk more about some of the logistics of QStream.
I'll just take you through it real quick again. I know this is really quick, but we just wanted to kind of give you a sense of what it takes to set up a QStream. So once again, the Department of Medical Education does have a QStream account. This time you can register, we will register you with your own account. So you don't have to worry about other users being in what you're doing, but you do need to worry about the fact that you do have access to other users' QStreams when you're in there. So they don't have a notion of an author role that only has access to your own material. Everybody goes in as kind of almost like has administrator rights. So you can access other people's QStream. So if you get an account with us and sign up with us, just be really careful not to go into someone else's QStream and edit or delete their questions. If you're interested in an account, you can email Victoria Cunningham, or you can just email the BCH Academy. We'll forward it on to Victoria. She administers the QStream. So the way it works is the owner, that's the role that it's called, an owner, enrolls the learners. So you set up your QStream and you have your cohort, and you upload their information, their email address, first name and last name, and then they'll get an email, and they'll have to create, from that email, they'll complete their registration by creating a password and logging on. So what the platform looks like is here. So now I'm logged in, and I have kind of a summary of today's question. We have QStreams you're taking, QStreams you've created, QStreams you've completed, and then profile and account settings. To create a new question, you access that link, and you can see it's basically a form-based system. Here's just some metadata about a question that you would save to get started. I'll go into one that I've already got going. A question I've got set up. This is just a throwaway question I'm just playing around with. But you have a level of question that's kind of almost like a course description, where you title your QStream, you can add a description, a syllabus if you have supporting materials, your intended audience, that kind of information. Our publishing settings, one in particular to call your attention to is the leaderboard that Mia was just describing, is actually when by default, when you set up a new QStream, it's on. So you may decide that you actually don't want to have a leaderboard and or you want to anatomize it. Is that the right form of the word? Then you would need to either turn it off completely or adjust those settings. Your spacing settings are here. So this would enable you to set up how often you want your questions delivered, on what basis. The one kind of gotcha here is that you can't have a 0 in any of these fields. Apparently, if you have a 0, it will publish. It won't go out. It'll look like it's published, but it won't actually get sent out. So no one will ever receive it, but you won't actually know that they didn't receive it. I got that from Victoria. So to add a question, there's basically multiple choice, single answer, multiple choice, multiple answer. You can see these fields include video and linked video and embedded video. You can upload images or link out, or just type in questions here, type in your answer selections there, mark which ones are correct. And then importantly, good feedback and explanation is always very important when writing questions. And then finally, just to give you a sense of the reporting that is available, there is this is kind of a system-wide report here, dashboard system-wide, but you can also then go into the reporting for I'm not going to mess with these because they're active, but you can go into reporting for your own QStream, and that's where you will get, let me go back to, that slide. Okay, that's my nonlinear navigation. Oh, I was going to be right there. Oh, here we go. Sorry about that. So, you'll start to get detailed information about your individual questions, and you'll be able to see how people moved from not being proficient to being proficient with a question on what schedule. So you can get a granular sense of what questions are causing more difficulty for learners and what questions they're having an easier time with. And now you can start adapting your teaching to those areas where they're having more difficulty. So just a quick overview again, we're available to drill down and set you up with an account and help you out with that. Gotchas, talked a little bit about the learner opting into emails. What that is that when you set up a learner in the system, they are opted into receiving the questions by email, like Mia showed you in that email screenshot. But your learners may not want that frequently to receive the email, so they'll have to log in to opt out of that. The leaderboard is on, as I said. Learners can't self-register. You'll have to register them before they can complete the registration. And that owner role issue, yeah, please be careful when you're in there working. Summary, you want to summarize the pros of the?
Sure. So the pros are that this is a platform that supports spaced learning and retrieval practice. It also has built-in ability to be adaptive in terms of sort of personalizing teaching and learning. There's the gamification aspect that keeps it fun, and then those back-end analytics that you can get a sense of how your learners are doing.
And, you know, I think I'm always the calm person because of I'm the technology person. But there is overhead involved with it. In this case, I would say writing the questions themselves, that's a time-consuming thing to write good questions. And the more you want to go toward that model that Mia was describing of where you're actually writing extensive explanations that become your learning and not just your assessment, of course, the longer it'll take. And then there, as you saw, there's that setup and you have to kind of administer the QStream throughout the course of the intervention. So there's that to consider as well.